Okay, folks, thanks for staying so late this afternoon. Martinez, and I'm with Checkpoint Software. And a little bit about who I am. I've been in the telecommunications and IT industry for almost 20 years, working for Verizon, AT&T, General Dynamics, those folks, and also spending some time in Samsung. So it's given me a really unique perspective on what I've seen CIOs implement here in the US and worldwide with the multinationals. And so what I'd like to do today for the presentation is just kind of walk everybody through some of the things that we're seeing, make sure we're all on the same page, and then highlight some of the work that we're doing as a company to secure the various nodes on the network, because ultimately, anytime we look at these devices, they are in fact nodes that are connecting into these networks every day. So with that said, securing the PCs are in the age of a PC. We knew that we had to place firewalls and watch for network traffic, that sort of stuff. So in the days when we had workers in the office that maybe went for lunch or at the end of the day or the end of the work week left the office and left that equipment there, it was pretty easy to maintain that infrastructure, manage it, and control it, right? However, that same workforce at not too long ago started taking laptops home and doing work from the house or at the coffee shop, wherever it was. And we saw significant productivity gains with our user base, right? So controlling those laptops was very similar to controlling the PCs. We put the firewalls in place, we encrypt the disk drives, do all those sort of things, and we could protect all those end users and our corporate data. However, all of that changed. So in the days where we had our BlackBerry infrastructure, where all the devices connected into the BlackBerry servers, wrote over the BlackBerry servers, their networks, you had all of your filtering and the proxy of the traffic, that changed when we started introducing the consumer products, that being the Android phones and the iOS products. So with that said, we've seen significant productivity gains because now I'm able to do things like approve expense reports on this, file expense reports, do things like look up salesforce.com, get in and see what I'm doing on my various client accounts. And all those productivity gains, again, they continue to skyrocket through the roof, which is why CIOs continue to allow the different IT communities to continue to connect these various devices to their corporate infrastructure. We're now seeing also the wearables come around, where the wearables are talking to our devices or to the various things and keeping tabs on things like my heart rate, how many steps I take a day. I'm able to turn off my refrigerator or adjust my heater, all those things from my smartwatch. So all of these things are great and good because we're seeing huge, tremendous productivity gains from it. And where are we going with it, right? What we're also seeing is all these various connected devices that are now on these networks, this Internet of Things, right? And these too are nodes that are connecting into the networks. So all of these new devices that are these consumer devices, it's a little nerve-wracking and frightening to see that all of these devices, a number of folks are not putting the security mechanisms that we put in place when we looked at things like encrypting the disk drives and stuff like this. Because I can guarantee you, no CIO would ever let a device like this leave the four walls without any type of protection for that device. But it's amazing how we've handed out millions of these without any protection on them for those users. So with that said, moving along, well, just in the healthcare industry alone on this one, I've been working with a number of companies that are looking at taking things like tablets and connecting them to a Bluetooth scale and then a Bluetooth glucose monitor to do the testing for type 2 or type 1 diabetes. So, and again, all of those devices are not secure as we traditionally know from an IT perspective. So with that said, technology continues to evolve to get these huge productivity gains, but the missing part in all of this continues to be the actual devices themselves with some type of security on them. So what happens if somebody were to get this product of mine and be able to access the data on it? From a personal standpoint, yes, they could get into my Chase account. They may be able to get into my American Airlines or Air Canada account and get access to that information. And they could do a little bit of damage, but that's not too difficult, and that's not going to really make or break anything. What is important is the corporate data that resides within this device. So I ask each of you that are sitting in here, think about the last week alone. What sensitive, confidential information have you touched in your company that would be very damaging to your company and to your brand if the cyber criminals were to get access to this device? So just in the last couple years alone, we've had some stats coming out just in Checkpoint and the various IDC and Forrester. There's a number of companies that are, and it's not just coming from Checkpoint, the vendor, the actual community themselves are coming out saying we're seeing huge, tremendous upticks and the hackers going directly after these mobile devices. With that said, what are they going after? Well, first of all, these folks, as we know, are pretty sophisticated individuals. So whether they're doing it in the case of like Sony for media attention, whether they're doing it for money or for political gain, we're seeing these attacks more and more often happen across, and they're very, very targeted attacks at the various enterprises. One of the largest chipset manufacturers across the planet came to us because even their own security software could not capture all the things that they knew were going on their mobile devices. So with that said, once they installed the mobile threat prevention technology from Checkpoint, they started seeing that a lot of the attacks that were happening on their mobile handsets were going after their executive leadership. And not only were they going after their executives, but they were also very targeted in going after their admin assistants because they could figure out who was who in the org chart and go directly after them because they knew they had access to the executive's calendar and all that sensitive data. So personally, just what I've seen, one of the projects that I worked on for some nurses up in the Northeast, we deployed about 350 Galaxy tablets. And the CISO at that time said, you know, I really want to embrace the new mobile tablets. I'm getting rid of the laptops that they're using because the battery life wasn't allowing them to continue their work throughout the whole workday. So from a productivity standpoint, it made sense that they wanted to use tablets because tablets were giving them anywhere from 9 to 13 hours of battery life for the day. That same CISO, when we talked with him about using a mobile device management company, said, you know, I really don't want to manage the devices. I just want to let my employees be as productive as possible. We've got a lot of millennials coming in, and the millennials they don't want us touching their user experience. Can you just leave it alone? And we said, well, sure, you know, it's your choice. It isn't what we would advise, but you know, we'll let you make that decision. It was interesting because they started seeing significant productivity gains by using an application called Embark. Embark is an app in New York where it will tell you the blue line's coming in 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. Really nice. And with that, just for using that one app, the various visiting nurses were getting in and seeing 1, sometimes 2 more clients a day. So imagine at the bottom line at the end of the month, they were seeing these significant gains in productivity from the workforce. So they continued to leave those tablets, 340 something of them, just running smoothly. Well, the nurses then started downloading another application, and the application they downloaded was the free flashlight, because oftentimes when they went out to the patient's homes, they were seeing that if they couldn't see the skin on the patient, they would need to turn on a brighter light. So they started downloading those free apps. Well, unfortunately, those free flashlight apps were injected with mobile malware. And so probably within the next week or 2 of the first one starting to install the free flashlight app from the Google Play Store, we started seeing almost within a few days, 150 of those laptops went completely blank, and they were on ransomware. So I personally have seen firsthand that this isn't some myth that's going on about this mobile stuff. 2 years ago when I started working with that CISO, we had no solution then to bring to market to help him with that. Our only option was to bring all those 150 tablets back in, wipe them back to factory specs, put a mobile device management piece of software on there as a way to at least try to protect the users from this type of activity going on around them. Because again, our users have no idea. We have conditioned our corporate users, whether it's downloading any of the corporate apps or anything for productivity, and the game is click as fast as you can on yes, 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 and give them full rooting access to these devices. We've conditioned them that way from IT, and now it's our time to go back in and see what we can do to fix some of this. So just in this instance alone, what I'd like to dispel here is that I've been in the business a long time, and it's safe to assume that there is no operating system out there today that any of us know of that is extremely 100% secure. There's always a door into these operating systems. So regardless of what operating system is out there and what marketing messaging you're hearing, all of these operating systems are vulnerable, some more than others in the case of Android, but each and every one of them provide access to it. So not only have we seen mobile malware here at Check Point, but we're also seeing the consumerization of mobile malware. What you're looking at here is consumerized mobile malware disguised as monitoring software for your kids. But it's really interesting because if you look down into their website, you can see where they prominently display the fact that this monitoring software is completely hidden from the user. So that's pretty powerful. You can pick this software up for as little as $300, or if you want to get really sophisticated and have all the bells and whistles, it's going to cost about $1,000. So imagine now that you can sideload or download a piece of software to this that the user oftentimes those MDMs cannot catch this advanced software that's appearing on a more regular basis. Additionally, this slide will dispel any of the marketing hype that you're getting from these manufacturing companies saying that they have not had any issues. This website itself is keeping track of all the vulnerabilities within this operating system. I cannot tell you how many times I've met with various CIOs that have said, I don't think there's a problem. Everything within this environment, it's a walled garden, it's a safe community. It's not just the issue with the actual operating system, folks. It's much more sophisticated than that, and I'll explain to you why. Anytime that a company determines that there's a problem with the operating system, they know they've got to put out a patch to fix it, right? But these things are deployed by the millions worldwide. The problem is from the moment that they find out the problem, put a patch in place and try to push it out. Especially with these mobile devices, they've got to either push them out organically through their stores and start, this is where you'll see your phones trying to get the latest update, or in the case of like the Android products, they've got to give those over to the carriers, the AT&Ts, the Verizons, so that they can test it and make sure that nothing breaks in their enterprise with that new code, and then they'll start pushing those down to the various devices. When you're looking at that gap of a vulnerability that's a known vulnerability, that could be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, and in some instances, the users that never elect to upgrade to the newer OSs, that vulnerability is still open on their devices. Is there a question back there? Question? You okay? Okay. So just on iOS attacks in the last year alone, that gives you an idea of what we're up against. Regardless of what the marketing hype is, these are the hardcore facts for you that you're looking at today. Additional to that, here at Check Point during Black Hat, we discovered additional malware that was uploaded in the Google Play Store, and we brought that to market and advised everybody what they could do to mitigate that using Check Point software. But it's not just that. We're hearing over and over again, all of these connected devices are connected nodes on these networks, right? So anytime the security is not implemented correctly to protect those end nodes, you're going to see instances like this where whole devices or whole vehicles in this instance can be completely brought down to a grinding halt. So who are we, Check Point? So Check Point, for the 9th consecutive year in a row, has received the highest accolades from Gartner for having the very best mobile data protection in the business, bar none. We do not have one single competitor that's been up in this chart as many years consecutively as we have. So when you look at the various companies, I referenced Kaiser there at 250,000 seats. AT&T runs about, I think, over 500,000. They're probably up close to 750,000 devices where we encrypt the hard drives, kind of like Kaspersky does. So the good news is that we're a known player. We've been in business 20 years. Our balance sheets are perfect. We're one of the only darlings in the security industry where we consistently, year over year, have made money and continue to make good investments right back into our technology, which is rather unique for the security space. So what we try to do when we're out in the field is just work with everyone to say, okay, the things that we could be doing as IT executives is fortify the various mobile devices. We need the ability to detect or stop any malicious activity that's attacking the mobile device. And then we need to implement strategies to educate our end users and have a dashboard for the who, what, where, and when. So let's talk about how this kind of evolved. So about 2006, 2007, when Gartner came out and said that BlackBerry was dead, the first thing that happened after that was the companies started toying around with mobile device management and how to implement it in their enterprise. The problem was that there was data loss happening. So that's where you saw in the marketplace companies like Mocana or AirWatch with their container or Mobile Iron in their container. The companies realized they had to get data loss protection for these mobile devices, but that still wasn't enough. So then you had the other companies like Lookout and some of the other ones come out with technology to at least try to go with the known signatures of antivirus for the mobile devices. However, the big missing piece has always been the advanced threat, which is unknown malware that's created 0 day, 0 second. And this, my friends, is what we do extremely well here at Checkpoint. So what are we doing? When we look at security for this type of a device, this iPhone, we're looking at protecting the operating system. We're also looking at protecting the applications that are in use. And we're also looking at any network-based attacks that would come after this. And the case that I like to reference with everyone is that, an example being, if you go to Hilton Inn, you may be Hilton Inn in the lobby Wi-Fi. And then if you go outside, you might be Hilton Inn at the pool. The problem is that not one of us in this room or our enterprise clients that use these products have any idea if one of those different networks is an evil twin or a spoofed Wi-Fi hotspot. The good news is when we say we protect the network side, we're also managing that for you as well. So how does it work? Well, essentially, here at Checkpoint, when we load, and this is integrated with the major mobile device management companies like AirWatch, Mobile Iron, Good. Essentially, you push out a thin client to the device. The thin client's just going to take snapshots of the operating system, of the applications as they're downloaded, and it's also going to watch that network side. And in the event that any action is triggered, it immediately sends a note up to step 3, which is where it's notifying the behavioral risk engine to start doing the analytics. So at this, folks, if you were to try to do that on this device, it would run the battery dead almost instantaneously to do all of that heavy computing power that is needed to really look at what's going on with this device. So we here at Checkpoint in the cloud are taking those little snapshots and running those applications or activities up in our behavioral risk engine. Now, when we do that, the good news is that we can do things, we can look at things in a static way, and we can look at them in a dynamic way. So when we're doing that opening of the applications, we're looking at things is there a time bomb in it? Is it going to exfiltrate your text messages and send them to a number you've never texted before? Is it capturing screenshots after the screen has already went dark? There's millions of different combinations that we know of that we've seen in the malware community, and all of those different combinations are in our behavioral risk engine. At any point, if we see that there's some type of something like ArcSight, Splunk, syslog. We download to give you your who, what, where, and when, so that way everything's tracked from a compliance standpoint. But more importantly, we also give you the ability through your MDM to trigger activities to say, if the device is under a man-in-the-middle attack on a Wi-Fi hotspot, stop the connectivity going through the internet, delivering that to a command and control, and route that back via VPN to the company's servers so they can continue to do their corporate work. We can do something like that. Or in the instance of if it's a malicious app, one of our clients, what they do is we notify the device that there's a malicious app on there. The user has 24 hours to delete that malicious app. If they don't, then from IT, the MDM triggers the ability to remove their access to Active Directory and cuts their access to the device for any corporate use. So those are the things that we're doing today in the marketplace. It's pretty amazing what we're doing, and the fact is, in terms of battery life on it, it only uses about 2% of the battery life for the entire day. And to have that level of protection is pretty sophisticated. So these are the three different vectors of everything that's taking place that I just talked about, where we're monitoring the apps, the networks, and the various hosts. And all of this that we're doing is very multidimensional in that we're really looking at the different behavioral things that are happening on the device. Because as I said previously, we've seen instances where some of the consumerized packaged mobile malware is undetectable. So we've got to open up some of those packages that of the unknowns and run them in our cloud in CPU engines to really see what is really going on with these various things that are being downloaded to these devices. So we make it as simple as possible. So working with the various MDMs, all that happens is they'll take our application, they'll push it out to your devices, whether you have 100, 1,000, 10,000. The good news is we've got this deployed pretty heavily, and including up to some of the government agencies already. So it's a nice piece of technology that's very scalable. One of our largest clients is over 100,000 seats running smoothly. Additional to that, some of the other questions that I get from clients are they going to be able to see my pictures? Can we look at what the users have in their text messages? And unfortunately not. We've taken the stance that the only thing that we're watching over, as I said, when it's a thin client, we're just grabbing metadata from the device. We're only watching over changes to the operating system, malicious applications, or network changes that are happening or occurring. So with that said, all of that data is very safe and it's very scalable. So when we look at educating our users, the things that we now should be doing from an IT perspective in the communities is working with the users to say, really start taking a little bit more careful note so that we're not going through and accepting any of the terms and conditions from every app. But in the event you do, if you use something like a mobile threat prevention technology, you need to walk them through this. These are the steps that it's going to do. It's going to look after the well-being of any Wi-Fi connection. It's going to look after the well-being of any malicious apps that can be downloaded, or it's also going to watch if there's any advanced routing on that. Now, oftentimes when I talk with clients, they say, well, what's the big deal with this? Well, the reality is that what we've seen more often than not is that anytime users cannot get access to the Verizons, T-Mobiles, AT&Ts of the world, the next thing they always by default do is they jump on those Wi-Fi hotspots. And the reality is they just don't know whether they're trusted or untrusted Wi-Fi hotspots. So it begins with an education process for them, or at least having a tool there that can help them if they get into trouble on their own. So that's everything that we had from Checkpoint relative to our mobile threat prevention technology. Are there any questions from the audience? I'd be happy to share with you some of the experience of things that I've implemented and had to go back and make changes to help IT out. Please. Yes, so as far as data loss protection, we at Checkpoint, as part of our portfolio, we do have another technology. So what I was talking about is just protecting these nodes that are on the network from the three attack vectors, the OS, applications, and network. But if you actually have sensitive data that you need to protect, Checkpoint has another suite of technologies. It's called Capsule, and in the case of your question, it would be Capsule Docs. And that's where any document that's sent within the company is a protected document based upon confidential, private, available use for internal and external partners, that sort of stuff. And so that's a part of the collection of solutions we have. And that can be coupled if you have something like Adelon today for data loss protection, it would couple right in and work with that. Good? Any other questions on that? That's a good question. I don't know if it's available for red herring yet. Adelon is the one that I tend to see come up more often than not. But what I can do is I'll give you my card, and I'll take your card, and I'll make sure to ask. Any other questions? You have me here. Stump the chump. Well, great. Well, thanks for coming out today and visiting us at Checkpoint. If you'd like to learn more about our mobile threat prevention technology, please feel free to reach out to your local rep here. He's right there in the back. Or myself, either one of us. We're happy to come out and work with you or your various teams, because what we've seen is just in the last few months alone, I have been on planes, trains, and buses working with a number of the CIOs throughout the West area and in Canada. And it's interesting because the CIOs know that they need to protect these nodes, but it's really interesting because InfoSec has traditionally looked at the PCs, and they haven't really looked at the mobile side. But it's then when I talk with the mobile groups, they know it's a problem because they're seeing it where they'll have devices with ransomware, so on and so forth, but then they're not talking to InfoSec. So a lot of what we're doing right now is just getting in front of the marketplace to say, when we meet with the teams, it's usually a good idea to bring in the CIO, the head of InfoSec, and the mobility teams, and bring them all together so that everybody's collectively working on how we're going to secure these various devices. Okay? Fair enough? Deal? Thanks again, and have a great day, folks.